Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. It is Lindsay and Hannah. We are your friendly Alberta recruiters, and we are back to talk about a really exciting report that was just released by Robert Half. It is the Demand for Skilled Talent report for 2021, and we all know how important these conversations have been this year and last year. It was such a dynamic world when it came to hiring and retention, and so this report does a great job of summarizing what we have seen, some of the concerns that is presenting, and then what we're really focusing on this year as industry in Alberta to focus on hiring and how to staff our teams effectively. So with all that being said, there are two main trends I wanted to start with. So in this report, it really highlights that anything that was backburnered last year, so any hiring that was done, anyone who maybe left and they did not backfill those positions, that period has kind of started to shift to the focus is now on actually hiring those roles and filling those positions. So last year, it was kind of figuring it out as we went. Everyone was uncertain. People were just kind of delegating the tasks that individual who maybe left the team had onto everyone else, and we were kind of making it work. So 2020 was the year of making it work. This year is the year of really strategizing and becoming effective again. So sometimes what that has looked like is restructuring of organizations, changing the way people are doing the work that they're doing. Automation, we've talked about a ton, so I won't go into that a ton today, but being able to really take what we've done, optimize it, and now hire for the positions we actually need this year. And so we've seen a lot of an increase in hiring. There's so many positions that we are working on as a team across Alberta. It's nuts at the moment. And it's all coming from this place of just adjustment over 2020 and then refocus in 2021. So that is trend number one. Any hiring that was backburnered is now forefront and top of mind. So that is really, really good to know. If you are hiring, it is a high competition market for your really strong technical skill sets, both in IT and finance and accounting, in business management, and in the social sciences as well. So that unemployment rate is ridiculously low, and there's a lot of demand for really strong skill sets. So keep that in mind if you are hiring. It's a tougher market than you might think. Given what we think 2020 did to our unemployment rates, it's very tough to find those high quality skill sets this year. So keep that in mind. Trend number two is projects. So we're seeing a lot of projects that were kind of put aside last year coming to fruition this year. So especially in technology, a lot of implementations, a lot of software development upgrades, just a ton of work in projects that we've seen come to the forefront. And so a lot of contract consultant opportunities, which is great for our candidates and really great experience for a huge variety of people who are looking for that new technical or new skill set to develop. So the other thing is burnout. Obviously, burnout, last year we talked about it already, but burnout is such an important thing as an employer for us to be aware of, because your people are a huge part of how you succeed in business. Mm-hmm. And so in order for you to continue to succeed, you need to make sure that your staff is well supported, able to do their job, and not experiencing a ton of burnout. So how we're really seeing this affect the workplace is that last year, a lot of the projects were just taken on by existing staff. And so instead of augmenting their teams or hiring new people to fill that extra burden, they just spread it out, right? Which worked for 2020, but is not going to continue to work now that we're heading into the second year of a pandemic. So when we see this kind of responsibility being taken on by existing members, that's when we see that heightened burnout levels. So this year, as projects are being kicked off, new projects started or refocused on, we are seeing that hiring is happening a lot around, either backfilling roles so people can focus on the project itself and not have to do 2 or 3 jobs at one time, or just hiring people separately for that project on a contract consultant or even a permanent basis if it's going to be an ongoing need ongoing support. So that has been the second trend when it comes to hiring and the focus or reason for hiring in the current market. And we hand it off to Lindsay to talk about some of the other trends in the report.
For sure. I just want to touch base in terms of kind of being a tight market. We're definitely seeing that kind of on the permanent side of things. We have numerous candidates who have multiple offers and are also being countered offered. So, exactly kind of what Hannah said, the market is incredibly tight right now. It is still hard to find, kind of that skilled professional that you're looking for. Just in accounting and finance alone, 96% of business leaders said it's still pretty challenging to find what they're looking for to the T. And I'm going to kind of talk about, obviously we chat a lot about remote work, but with more of the conversations I'm having with clients and candidates, it's definitely going to look like the majority of it is going to be a hybrid workplace. So I wanted to kind of chat about, the benefits and also, the challenges as well on both the hybrid side of things. So we'll start with the benefits side. 31% is in terms of retention. So it's something that we're hearing with our candidates that we're interviewing. They are looking for that hybrid or completely remote or flexible work environment to have. Work-life balance is definitely at the forefront of everyone's mind. And, kind of just, again, talking to Tana's key point in terms of burnout, right? A lot of employees are kind of realizing that they are, being overworked and we're able to do it, but they just don't see maybe their employee, starting to hire for that help that they did promise. So they are starting to kind of make a move. 21% reduction in cost and real estate costs, being able to kind of downgrade your office and just having people schedule in times can obviously save on that overhead cost, and just doing from a cost analysis side, it's definitely a plus. And then, 18% would be business continuity and productivity. We said that's kind of at the beginning of when we started these series. It was kind of funny because a lot of, companies, especially in Robert Half, said our productivity went up when we kind of worked from home. When I think a lot of companies, obviously their number one fear was it would go down because we wouldn't want to, work in our home. But again, burnout again, you're at home. It's not that separate space. It's definitely hard. So make sure you're taking care of your mental health and having that division between work and home, right? So absolutely. And then kind of on the flip side, the biggest challenges, number one is sustaining team engagement and productivity. I'm hearing a lot of that as well, just, being over the Zoom meetings and just trying to keep engaged and not having that kind of morale within the office where you have, where you're able to kind of interact in person. So just finding kind of new ways to kind of stay engaged and be productive. And, a good way to do that is just not scheduling meetings just to have, for the business side of things, but also just to check in. Again, we've said this before, if you're a manager, just saying something as simple as, how are things doing? How are you doing mentally? How are you doing in terms of the workload? And just actually putting kind of a human touch and not so much just work focus is definitely going to go a long way for your employees and your retention rate as well. 16% is more so on the HR side of things. So trying to keep up with HR trends and compliance. I'm definitely still trying to keep up with compliance just in terms of our province. So I can't even imagine, the HR professionals who are trying to keep up with all of the changing tidbits from what the government is saying and what they're having to do. So especially from a hybrid work model. So it definitely is kind of that gray area, but shout out to the HR professionals out there. We know that you're definitely in the trenches nowadays for sure. And then the last one would be transitioning company culture to a hybrid environment, kind of similar to the first one. Just again, sustaining that team side, sustaining that company culture side. So make sure, if you are in a leadership position, you're collaborating with HR. They're going to be the ones who are going to be able to direct you in that way. And if not, then, we do have actually consultants who are able to kind of be a specialization in that side of things and being able to kind of transition it to kind of a remote and technological side. So I'm going to throw it back to Hannah to actually talk about another trend, which is relocation. Yeah.
Yes. So before we were planning for this meeting, and I was like, I don't know that much about relocation. And then I realized that I'm relocating right now. I'm in the process of relocating. So it makes me the perfect person to talk about this. So workers are open to relocating right now. I mean, I'm one of them. An opportunity presented itself for me to get up and move to a different city, and I took that opportunity. But about 44% of employees would consider relocating to a different city right now. The primary reason is just for a change in lifestyle and a change of scenery. I think all of us right now in COVID, we're kind of used to being stuck in one place. I think that is kind of motivated people to maybe consider moving outside of their current city and exploring somewhere new. So that is the main reason. That being said, we're seeing a lot in the news about companies, suggesting pay cuts or pay changes based on where you're relocating to. So if you're interested in relocating as an employee, keep that in mind. In our surveys, 84% said they would not be willing to take a pay cut if they relocate. It's an interesting thought, but one thing to consider is that if you're not relocating for a promotion and the cost of living or the normal pay rates for that region are less, that might be something that you need to consider as part of that relocation process. So don't be surprised if that comes up. You can use our salary guides as an employer or an employee as a resource, and it does show you the differences. Someone working in San Francisco in technology makes very different than someone working in Idaho in technology. So keep that in mind. Very different markets, and there should be some changes in pay when it comes to relocating to those areas. So when it is time for relocation, 48% of companies are allowing a temporary relocation. Always making sure you're running this by your employer is important because tax laws do differ in different provinces and states. So that is the number one reason why temporary relocation can be a challenge. So just make sure you're having those conversations and understanding that there is that tax and legal ramifications. You can't just kind of get up and go anywhere and expect not to have different taxation laws around that. So keep that in mind. 27% are allowing permanent relocation at the moment, and then about 24% are still not allowing for relocation. So with remote work and a hybrid model, there's definitely some pros to having people local because they can do that more of that team building aspect that Lindsay was talking about while still maintaining that productivity of working from home. So something to keep in mind as we move forward. And when it comes to adjusting salaries, just one more thing to mention is that markets do change, and in COVID, they change pretty quickly. So keep that in mind. Just keep an eye. This report is going to get updated every time there's new market information and new surveys completed. So you can come back to this report and there will be new stats around relocation and what it looks like to relocate with an employer at the moment. So keep that in mind. Come back to this page if you're interested in relocation but aren't sure about what the stats say about it. And then to finish off, Lindsay is going to talk about the ways we can support our teams and support our staff while progressing through 2021.
Absolutely. So like I said, kind of before with the trends of, burnout and kind of just keeping engaged, Robert Half, again, also just always great content to kind of help you in case you kind of are struggling to figure out some ways to do that. So five ways to support staff. So number one, promote virtual training and learning. I'm definitely hearing this a lot from my candidates that they're taking the time, because we are kind of in a lockdown and not able to do a lot to further their education and just kind of further their knowledge in terms of whether it be the software system, maybe their, degree or certification. So make sure that you are having that available. If you obviously have the financial resources to do that as a company, again, it will just go so much further in terms of your retention rate and just your employee morale overall. And if you have that and you see that a lot of your, kind of employees aren't taking advantage of that, maybe it's time to kind of have a meeting and just kind of reiterate that it is available. We do have this, very much encourage it, especially if there's a lot of employees who are wanting to do growth internally, which, 99% of your employees are going to want to do. Definitely have that. There are many affordable online professional development options. Even if your kind of, company budget is lean, there definitely are ways to help out. Number two, very important, enhance work-life balance. Adopt flexible policies or windowed work to improve work-life balance and boost staff morale. So kind of what we're seeing that, from that kind of perspective is breaking up your workday and just kind of, allowing your staff to maybe do the meetings in the morning, have a little bit of break throughout the day, especially if they have young kids, or if they go pick them up from school, et cetera, and then allowing them to kind of finish the workday throughout the night. That's definitely something that we're seeing as a trend. Flexibility is definitely a huge ask for our candidates. Number three, foster well-being and mental health. I mean, there is that report that just came out. I mean, more so on the kids side, that basically said it's going to take them 10 years to get back their mental health capacity and how much that has been affected from a pandemic. And I can't even imagine, obviously, adults. I definitely am someone who will admit that my mental health has definitely been a roller coaster through this time, and I think everyone can probably relate to that. It's definitely hard being kind of trapped inside, not being able to have a normal lifestyle. I'm someone who is very, very busy and have kind of a schedule and timeline of where I need to go and just different things I'm doing. So the fact that my life radically changed from being go to not being able to do anything at all, it definitely takes a toll, right, for mental well-being. Hannah's definitely a champion of that in our work side. She definitely leads the meditation every Friday and just like is the forefront of our kind of well-being overall as a company. So kudos to you. But again, just even communicating with the team members 2 to 3 times more often to gauge their feelings and offer wellness, resources or counseling helplines as well would go a long way. Again, just asking how you're doing outside of work, how your life is. Not even making kind of work related is definitely a huge perk for sure. Number 4, take interest in employees' career goals. Show what career path options are available to the team members to help them more engaged, productive, and loyal. And just, honestly, sitting down and having a 5-minute conversation with your employee and just say, how do you see yourself in the company kind of in the future? Have you thought about that at all? How can I help you get there? Or have you thought about how you're going to get there? Again, just creates that relationship to be stronger from kind of an employer-employee setting. So I definitely encourage that to happen, especially, not just at your annual meetings that you have with your employees, but just kind of throughout. And if you haven't talked to your employees about that, definitely, I definitely recommend to do so for sure. And last but not least, give employees workload relief. Hannah, like I said, that trend is happening, and it has to happen. Even if hiring new staff is not an option right now, take some of the pressures off the employees by bringing in skilled temporary professionals, right? That's definitely a trend that we're seeing on our side of things, where a lot of our clients, even on the permanent side, we're pairing up with our contract team to kind of get the cleanup and workload under wraps before we do bring in that kind of professional permanent placement kind of professional to come in. So we're seeing a lot of cleanup happen, and there is that temporary option just to catch up, right? So definitely reach out if you guys are in that situation.
Yeah, as Lindsay said, it has to happen at this point. Like the turnover due to burnout is going to kill companies' productivity this year if we do not take effective steps to mitigate some of that. So so that's the report in a nutshell. I mean, it has a lot more detail, a lot more stats. Keep an eye on it. We'll link it, of course. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Lindsay and myself about our local markets. We will be able to connect you with the right resource and the right answer if we don't know the answers ourselves. If you are hiring and you need assistance or just thoughts on what we're seeing, what expectations are, again, we're a great resource for you. And if you are looking for jobs right now, it helps to know what's a reasonable expectation and what's not. So definitely use this tool, use this resource, and of course, chat with any of our Robert Half recruitment team to help support you through that transition. So without further ado, we hope you have an excellent week. We hope this was useful and informative, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.